Welcome to This Week in West Hempstead. This is your post-school budget vote special. I am with our hosts, David and Norm. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Dan, and glad to be here, albeit remote, and exciting times in West Hempstead with the school board budget just completed. What does it look like?
So if you have not heard, the school budget, the new modified budget has passed. The numbers on the vote, which completed yesterday, were 1,239 votes in favor, 1,065 against, and this is in comparison to the previous vote, which had 734 yeses versus 1,003 noes. And I'll just note those are courtesy of our recent guest, Owen Rumelt, who was kind enough to share those numbers with us. So definitely a definite yes, but not exactly an overwhelmingly, I guess, a positive result from around the town.
No, it's the margin was 174, so that was definitely a real slim margin. Norm, what do we think accounts for that slim margin?
Well, I think it's voter apathy in general. I know some of the people that voted last time were out of town this time, so there were a lot of vacations happening, but still you had another 600 or so votes that came out to vote. Some for, much more for than last time. So there's been a turnaround.
Yeah, it certainly was a turnaround for those in favor, and low voter turnout to me was really quite a surprise. And you would have thought with all the publicity, people would have known to go vote, but the apathy is out there, which is very unfortunate.
Well, yeah, but we did improve. We got more people coming out to support the Board of Ed. Clearly, they're going to have a decent budget now without having to suffer significant cuts. But we're going to take a 1.5% increase in our taxes.
And what was it going to be with the previous budget? Do we know?
It was 2.14. So they saved us a couple of bucks.
Well, you know what? It's a couple of bucks during certainly a very difficult economic time, and it also goes to show you that the negative vote really didn't help this go around. So there were several ways of communications. There was the concerned citizens were out there doing whatever it is that they do, dropping flyers on people's doorsteps. There was a barrage of emails, and also
you got a WhatsApp invite, didn't you, for something?
Yeah, I didn't really want to get into it right now, but let's get into it. It's I'm outside getting a barbecue together, and I get a WhatsApp message from someone that I know in the community, and I won't say who because I don't think that that's really relevant, but it's certainly someone who has I would say some prominence in the community, but I don't really talk to him on any regular basis whatsoever. And the message was simply, quote, "Please vote against budget today." And honestly, it just pissed me off. I mean, it's why are you spamming me on WhatsApp? What's the message? The message is just vote against it because, I mean, there's no substance. There's nothing that goes up behind it outside of just sort of a knee-jerk reaction. And it was very disappointing. It was very disappointing that people ultimately, there was still, almost 50% of people out there who really aren't listening to what the facts are and what we need to get accomplished, and also some of the thornier issues like busing. And it's very simple to just say vote against it, but that really doesn't necessarily help us in the long term. So yeah, I think all this negative messaging certainly had a negative impact on me.
Well,
And yet we did have hundreds of people come to our podcast. We had the president of the Board of Ed and we had the superintendent of schools. They discussed in detail some of the budget issues. And I'm happy to see people are at least concerned enough to take a look, to see what, listen, to hear what they had to say, especially on the issues of busing. It's a critical issue. It's a $6 million, almost 10% of the budget that's being spent on busing. And it was explained, and I'm happy to see that people tuned in.
yeah, my objection, and you talked about this before, David, is how many of these things are these weird anonymous things, like, concerned citizens of, and I think you said, be a man, step up out in front and tell us who you are. I'm not comfortable with people being afraid to announce themselves. And if you look at these numbers, really the no votes barely budged, right? I think it's something like 60 more no votes and 500 plus yes votes. So it kind of seems to me like the news got around, the people who showed up either were not convinced by the kind of anonymous vote against, or perhaps the message coming from the school district was strong enough that they said, you know what, you're right, I want to vote for it.
Exactly. And to Norm's point, that was really why I think it was so critical and crucial for Karen Brom and for Joel Press to come on our show and to do that interview. There were literally hundreds of people who saw that interview, and they saw two people who were dedicated and determined to do what's best for the, I think, roughly 1,700 students in our school district. So it's a fairly large school district, and that they had a grasp of the numbers. And sure, there are issues, and there's still issues that need to be resolved. But at the end of the day, life goes on, and the school has to, the school budget needs to be in place. And I think what needed to be done was done.
Well, the other thing I want to call out, we were going to get a school budget, right?
Correct.
Something was going to happen. So, yes, we talked them into knocking it down a little bit or whatever the case may be. And I don't think any of us minimize the impact that any raise is going to have on people's budget in tough times. But at the end of the day, something was going to get passed. And that something was going to be in the, at a minimum $65 million range, 68. Like there was only so much I think that was going to get cut out of this. And I think the rhetoric was not helping.
No, and a big chunk of that money is, as Norm pointed out, that $6 million that to some extent was earmarked towards busing and towards special education. That's a good thing that that's approved in the budget. So we don't have to worry about it in the short term. However, when you look at the statistics, and there were some numbers that were posted in an article on Newsday, 44% of kids in West Hempstead go to private schools compared to the average of 12% in all of Nassau County. So clearly there's a big difference between what goes on here and what goes on pretty much everywhere else. And it's also important to recognize the fact that the school board recognized that and included it in the budget. And we go forward, and both the private schools have the busing, and the regular schools and the public schools are properly funded. I think this is kind of the best case scenario for all people concerned.
Right, and I'm happy to see that the public school system in our town gets supported. It's important to keep their level of education up. They happen to have pretty good scores on a statewide basis, as well as on a countywide basis. And I'm looking forward to them to continuing at that high level.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm certainly glad that that West Hempstead Echo was able to play a role in this, and we were able to get that discussion going. And I think it's really important that people don't hide behind names, that they don't necessarily hide behind social media and just say whatever you want to say because it's you don't have to be held accountable. But at the end of the day, we should be held accountable. We're all paying our taxes, so we're all in this together. So,
All right, so let's extend the invitation to people who want to have something to say about things that go on in our community. Give us a shout. Let us know what you think. And if you've got something reasonable to say, we're here.
Exactly. We are the forum to have that open communications. Really great point, Norm. So I think with that, Dan, we should be wrapping up today, and we look forward to joining all of you next week.
So once again, thank you for joining us. By all means, go to our Facebook group if you would like to comment on the final results of the budget vote. And as David says, we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.